This is the AEW Dynamite March 26, 2025 full show results video, which takes place at St. Paul, Minnesota's Roy Wilkins Auditorium. The show started with a match between Blake Christian versus Kenny Omega. Omega gains the upper hand and Christian showcases his agility and flips Omega off. Omega chops him and drops him with a back suplex, then Christian takes control as he gouges Omega's eyes and hits a spear on the apron. He dives onto Omega at ringside, then Lee Johnson interferes, and Omega punches him. Omega dumps Christian with a snapdragon and hits him with another. In the end, Omega blasts Christian with a V-trigger and hits the one-winged angel, and won the match by pinfall. Omega grabs a microphone, says it'll be a different story at AEW Dynasty, as he'll have to deal with Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. Bailey interrupts and Bailey congratulates Omega and says that he's an inspiration. He tells Omega that he admires him as a wrestler and as a person. He says that come Dynasty, he won't hold anything back, as he will kick his head off and take the title. Ricochet appears on the video screen and says he's dressed for the best day of his life, as he's not at the show due to his wedding. He says he will show everyone that he is the best in the world when he wins the title at AEW Dynasty and calls his victory inevitable. Omega says that it won't be about making friends, and he doesn't need more anymore. He says that Bailey isn't his comrade, and the only thing he has room for is his title and his legacy. Omega says that Bailey and Ricochet are another stepping stone to cementing his legacy. He welcomes Bailey to AEW before doing his goodbye and goodnight bit. Backstage, Chris Jericho is standing by with the learning tree and says that it's time to take off the masks and reveal some truths. He says he's sick of asking Big Bill and Brian Keith to prove themselves. Jericho tells them to question if they want to be with him, and if so, they need to prove it, and they walk off. Jericho tells Bandito that he wants his mask, and he challenges him to a title versus mask match at AEW Dynasty. Maxwell Jacob Friedman makes his entrance, microphone in hand, and takes some shots at the crowd. He says he's been looking at the Hurt Syndicate card, and he wants to talk to MVP. He calls out MVP, who comes in. MJF calls MVP a legend. He says that after everything that happened with Adam Cole, he told himself he wouldn't have friends in this business. He says that MVP does business, and he would like to be in the business of hurting people. MJF extends his hand, but Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin interrupt. Lashley gets in MJF's face and tells him to give him the card, and Lashley rips up the card. He raises his fist, and MVP says, "We're cool." MJF backs up and says, "We're cool." He walks away. Big Bill and Brian Keith interrupt, and Keith says they have business to attend to. Bill says Lashley and Benjamin need challengers, and he says he can't tell whether MVP is a pimp or a businessman. MVP says he's a little bit of both, and he's about to have Lashley and Benjamin make them their bitches. Bill says MVP is the MVP of being their bitches. Bill says that he wasn't pinned when he lost the tag team titles, and he never got a rematch. He says they're going to take the titles back, and MVP says they will get an opportunity if they win a match. Back from the commercial, Renee Paquette interviews Oddball tag team Toni Storm and Thunder Rosa. Rosa makes a point of making it known she's coming for her title, and Storm does a bunch of double entendres and renames their team Thunder Tits. The next match happened between Brody King versus Kyle Fletcher. Fletcher takes the fight to King right away, and King overpowers Fletcher and hits him with some clubbing blows. King slams Fletcher and continues to ground him, and then Fletcher drills King with a kick and stomps him. King hits Fletcher with a stiff shot, sending him to the outside, then King and Fletcher trade blows. With a dive to the outside, King takes control, then Fletcher sends King into the ring post, and he rocks King with a kick and dives onto him at ringside. Fletcher hits an elbow drop. King rallies and slams Fletcher onto the apron, then Fletcher and King trade blows again. King nails Fletcher with an elbow and drops him with a lariat. Fletcher catches King with some kicks and hits a tombstone for a near fall, then King floors him with a lariat again. Mark Davis comes down and pulls Fletcher out of the way when King goes for a cannonball. In the end, Kyle Fletcher hits a brainbuster on the turnbuckle and defeated Brody King by pinfall. Post-match, the Don Callis family attack Brody, but Powerhouse Will Hobbs makes the save through the crowd. He cleans house with elbows, and King takes Fletcher out with the cactus clothesline. Then we saw a match between Mark Davis versus Powerhouse Hobbs, and the result of this match was Powerhouse Hobbs defeated Mark Davis by pinfall with spinning spinebuster. Backstage, Nick Wayne and the Patriarchy are standing by. Wayne is asked about standing up to Christian Cage, and he says things are starting to make sense to him. He says they executed a plan by costing Cope his match last week. In an interview backstage, Hangman Adam Page is asked about entering the Owen Hart tournament. Swerve Strickland interrupts and confronts him, telling him not to play with him, and Prince Nana pulls Strickland away. Rated FTR is interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and Dax Harwood apologizes for walking out on Cope last week. He says it felt like they took their eye off the ball by helping Cope, and Wheeler says he doesn't like seeing them fight. He highlights how Cope helped him when he was struggling, and without either of them, he didn't have anything. Harwood apologizes again and says he took it too far, then says they have helped Cope with his goals, and now it's time for them to target the tag titles. Wheeler says he wants to go after the trios titles together. Cope challenges the Death Riders to a trios title match at AEW Dynasty. Swerve Strickland comes to the ring and quickly calls out AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. Moxley comes out by himself, and Strickland says he has been letting this go on for too long. He asks Moxley what happened to him, as he used to be revered here, but now he hid behind his stable. Strickland says that Moxley isn't worthy of being a champion, and says that everything that Moxley used to describe himself was now looking across from him. Claudio Castagnoli sneaks up behind Prince Nana, and Moxley says the match is Swerve versus Swerve and asks Strickland who he is. Moxley says he knows who Strickland is and he knows what he could be. He says he has had high hopes for Strickland, and at AEW Dynasty, he will have the chance to become who he can be, and says Strickland must ask himself how far he's willing to go. Moxley says Strickland hasn't suffered enough yet, but he will. He says his sport has been taken over by billionaires and talent agencies and Instagram kids, but Swerve gives him hope that what he has put himself through has been worth it. Moxley tells Strickland he's not going to give it to him, and he's ready to go right now. Marina Shaffer sneaks up, but Willow Nightingale stops her, and Strickland says he's smarter than him. He calls himself violence and the most dangerous man in AEW, and vows to win the title and continue to lead the Dynasty era. Moxley and Strickland stare each other down. Moxley leaves, then Shaffer attacks Nightingale, and they brawl. Castagnoli pulls Shaffer away. Samoa Joe and Hook are walking backstage, and they find Max Caster talking to Top Flight. Joe sneaks up behind Caster and chokes him out. In an interview, Jay White discusses Will Ospreay and Hangman Adam Page declaring for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament and announces that he is entering the tournament. The next match happened between Alex Finley and Devo Knight versus Top Flight, and the result of this match was Top Flight won the match by pinfall with a frog splash from Dante Martin. The next match happened between Konosuke Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe, and the result of this match was Konosuke Takeshita defeated Mark Briscoe by pinfall with Raging Fire. Death Riders answer Rated FTR's challenge in a promo backstage, and Wheeler Yuta calls Adam Copeland sinister for trying to rip him from his family, and Claudio Castagnoli calls them pathetic for the infighting and the hissy fits, and Pac says their arrogance is hard to stomach, and they have the audacity to challenge them? No, at AEW Dynasty it is them who challenge Rated FTR to survive the Death Riders. Back from the commercial, the Hurt Syndicate are interviewed backstage, and the Hut Syndicate is asked about what happened with MJF. Lashley makes it clear that he has a problem with MVP recruiting MJF. MVP says they've been talking about a fourth member for a while now, and he likes MJF. He says that MJF has done some terrible things, and that could be good for him. MVP says they can revisit this, but they should focus on Big Bill right now, and they walk away together. In the main event of the show, we saw a match between Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. Bayne and Rosa start the match and feel each other out, and they battle back and forth. Ford and Storm tag in, then Storm dumps Ford with a German suplex. Rosa and Storm double-team Ford, then Ford and Bayne take control. They isolate Rosa and keep her grounded, then Rosa rallies, and she and Ford are both down after a clothesline. Storm tags in and takes control, and she drops Bayne with a DDT on the floor. Rosa slams Ford with a Death Valley driver, then Bayne slams Rosa. Storm and Bayne keep battling, then Storm hits a hip attack and Bayne accidentally kicks Ford. In the end, Megan Bayne drops Storm with Fate's Descent, and pin Toni Storm to win the match. Ford and Bayne celebrate with many awkward hugs, and the show goes off the air. How much you would rate this week's Dynamite show? Tell me in the comments, and thanks for watching.